Hello, welcome back to Let's Play Assassin's Creed 2 as we do more readings from the database. Last time we went through people, so today we're going to at least start going through locations. Oh yeah, it's gonna be... God, there's so much just in Venice. Alright, I guess, what one do I want to start with? Doesn't matter, it's all a big circle, but... Well, let's start with Venice itself. That seems like a good place to start. Venezia, likely established sometime around the late 7th century, Venice's lagoon-locked location was the result of Byzantine settlers attempting to hide from Lombard invaders. By the Middle Ages, the city had grown into a great naval power. Its strategic position at the top of the Adriatic meant that ships taking goods inland had to go through Venice, filling its coffers with money and commerce. Entering the late Middle Ages, Venice exercised influence over both of its neighboring states and the church. When the Fourth Crusade rolled around in 1202, the Crusaders required transport on Venice's ships, which the Venetian Doge, Enrico Dandolo, agreed to on the condition that the Crusaders retake the Dalmatian city of Zadar and then capture Constantinople. When Constantinople fell, the city was sacked by the Venetian fleet, which stole, among other things, 4 bronze horses as ornaments for the Basilica San Marco. Now that's what I call a faith-based initiative. As Venice's wealth grew, so did its fleet. Though through sea battles, she gained Byzantine territory, Hungarian territory, and destroyed the Genoese fleet. Venice's fortunes were so entwined with the sea that every year the Doge would throw a ring into the lagoon while saying in Latin, "We wed thee, sea, in the sign of the true and everlasting Lord." Despite much eye-raising about the godliness of sea-human relations, the Pope sanctioned the marriage. By the end of the 15th century, Venice was quite possibly the wealthiest city in Europe and the second largest city in Europe after Paris, but the rest of Europe had had enough. France, Spain, Austria, and Hungary joined together in the League of Cambrai, partnering with Pope Julius II to crush Venice. Excuse me. But Venice was able to weather the storm, ultimately keeping her territories even after several disastrous defeats. But she would never expand again. Turkey attacked in the 18th century, and Venice began a long decline which ultimately ended in 1797 when Austria took control of the Republic. Oh, that takes me all the way back out? God damn it. Database, locations, Venice. Oh, shift is, okay. District of San Polo. The District of San Polo is home to the famous Rialto Bridge and Venice's oldest church, San Giacomo di Rialto, which dates from the 5th century. It also contains Santa Maria Gloriosa di Frari, one of the largest churches in Venice. Merchants flocked to San Polo to sell their wares. Small wonder the Palazzo of Venice's most powerful 15th century merchant, Emilio Barbaggio, is located here. Bottega di Leonardo a Venezia. During his brief stay in Venice, Leonardo da Vinci was a paid military engineer for the Venetian army and claimed to be working on a painting of the famous Isabella d'Este, of whom he had made a cartoon while visiting Menuda. Despite promising her repeatedly that he was hard at work, no painting ever materialized. Although many history books claim Leonardo only visited Venice once, it seems that he used his workshop there as a sort of secret retreat, returning to it repeatedly during his life. Palazzo della Seta, the home of Venice's most powerful merchant, Emilio Barbaggio. Work on Seta, as it is affectionately known by the locals, was completed in 1450. The palazzo is a standout example of Venetian Gothic architecture, dark and imposing, yet light and airy at the same time. San Giacomo di Rialto. Originally founded in 421, San Giacomo is believed to be the oldest church in Venice, although the current building was constructed around 1071. The 15th century facade is crowned with a magnificent 24-hour celestial clock. During the Renaissance, the church was typically used by merchants in the nearby market as a place to stop and pray during the workday. At least that's what they told their wives. San Giove. One of the earliest examples of Renaissance architecture in Venice, this church was built for the residents of a nearby hospice by the Doge buried inside, Cristoforo Moro. Cristoforo presided over Venice's war with the Turks until his death in 1471. He had one son, Dante Moro, who he disowned after Dante lost his position as captain of the Venetian city guard in 1468. Madonna dell'Orto. Enacted by Humility, a penitential order in the 14th century, Madonna dell'Orto was initially dedicated to St. Christopher. When a miraculous statue of the Virgin was found in a nearby orchard, orto in Italian, the church was renamed. The facade was added in 1464. Cannaregio district, largely a working-class area of the city. Cannaregio became the Jewish ghetto in 1516 and was enclosed by guarded gates to keep the Jews separated from the rest of Venice. FYI, this was the origin of the Venetian term ghetto, which means a part of the city to which Jews are restricted, not this couch is so ghetto as is commonly thought today. The district contains the churches of San Giove and Madonna dell'Orto. Quartier Generale di Bartolomeo di Alviano. Bartolomeo di Alviano later went on to grander things in life, serving as the general of the Venetian army. This period of Bartolomeo's biography seems to be undocumented in the history books, and from the looks of the stable he's using as his headquarters, I can see why. Scuola Grande di San Marco. The Scuola Grande di San Marco was one of the 6 large charitable organizations founded in Venice to help citizens afford food, dowries, processions, marriages, burials, and anything else they might need. Notably, membership was open to any citizen of Venice, not just the elite. Citizenship status was conferred on third-generation Venetians or those who had paid taxes for 15 years, meaning that Venetians were pretty xenophobic except when you gave them money. The facade of the building, which was built in 1260, was destroyed in a 1485 fire, causing it to be rebuilt in its current opulent Byzantine form. Santi Giovanni e Paolo, one of the largest churches in Venice. Santi Giovanni e Paolo was built after Doge Jacopo Tiepolo had a dream about white birds flying over the site. He donated the land on which the church was built in 1246 to the Dominicans. The current Italian Gothic church was completed in 1430. On a stranger note, the church claims to contain the foot of Saint Catherine of Siena. Born in Siena in 1347 as the last of 25 children, Catherine became an important ambassador for the Pope, whom she liked to call Daddy. Ironically, the most startling incident in her life happened after her death, when her followers in Siena attempted to steal her body from Rome. Unable to get the body out of the city, they lovingly cut off her head and put it in a sack. When the guards decided to search the sack, her followers prayed to Catherine. The guards saw rose petals inside the sack instead of the head, and let the group go to Siena without taking the bloody sack away from them. And that's why she's a saint. Arsenale di Venezia. First built as a naval depot for private ships, the arsenal was rebuilt and enlarged in 1320. From that point on, it was used by the Venetian state to construct and maintain its ships. Famously, at the peak of production, shipbuilders were able to produce an entire ship in a day. The impressive front gate, the Porta Magna, went up in 1460 in the classical revivalist style. Looks like Silvio Barbaggio was not the first Templar to control the arsenal. According to my research, the 1320 renovation was paid for with Templar funds, and they seem to have had an established base there ever since. San Pietro di Castello. First built in the 7th century, San Pietro di Castello was the seat of the Bishop of Venice. Notice how far away San Pietro di Castello is from the Palazzo Ducale. That distance is not accidental. The Venetian doges wanted to remain independent from the church. Although San Pietro di Castello itself is nothing remarkable, the tower is the first to be cloaked in Istrian stone from the quarries outside Venice, the same white stone that covers the Palazzo Ducale. San Zaccaria. First built in the 9th century, San Zaccaria is dedicated to the father of St. John the Baptist, Zechariah, who is supposedly buried there. Other locations in which St. Zechariah is supposedly buried: the Grand Zasser Monastery in Nagorno-Karabakh, Yad Avshalom, the Great Mosque of Aleppo, and the Valley of Jehoshaphat. San Zechariah burned down in 1105, killing more than 100 nuns. The church was rebuilt around 1170, and later redone with a mixture of Gothic and Renaissance styles. Ironically, in the Renaissance, it flourished as a nunnery of choice for the daughters of the noblest families in Venice, who obviously didn't know the building's history. I just can't help but notice, 10 years ago, I might not even have recognized all these names, but Nagorno-Karabakh, there was a war there. Aleppo, there was a war there. These two I don't, but this sounds Jewish, and there's always been wars in Israel. So that's the only one I'm unfamiliar with, but I'm wondering if all of these have been hot spots within the past couple of years. Wonder if there's any correlation there. Castello District. The largest district in Venice, Castello grew up around the arsenal. If you're looking for soldiers, this is the place to go. Or if you're more interested in peace and reflection, there's the church of San Zaccaria to the south. Rebecca 84, if you skipped this entry, you'd be on top of that church by now. What the hell does that mean? Santa Maria di Carmini. Built in the 1300s, Santa Maria di Carmini, Carmini for short, was founded by a group of women who made their livelihood stitching monastic aprons for the monks in a nearby Carmelite monastery. Carmelites believed so much in these aprons, or scapulars, that the Carmelite constitution stated it was a serious fault to sleep without one, and saying Mass sans scapular resulted in automatic excommunication. Why? Because in 1251 the Virgin Mary made herself known to Simon Stock of Cambridge, and she told him that those who wore a brown scapular would be granted salvation. So 200 years later, a group of women still huddle inside Santa Maria di Carmini, working all their lives to manufacture salvation distilled in the form of brown aprons. Santa Maria della Vistazione. Back 84, I bet the view from the top is awesome. Located on the waterfront, Santa Maria della Vistazione is the second church in Venice with that same name, making it easy to end up at the wrong wedding. The church was founded in the 1400s and dedicated to Saint Jerome, the patron saint of librarians and encyclopedia writers, but then was rededicated to the Virgin's visit with Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, perhaps because visits are usually accompanied by food and are quite simply more fun. Square di San Trovaso. This small square is used as a boatyard to build and repair gondolas. The chief means of transportation within Venice, gondolas are fashioned out of 8 different kinds of wood: mahogany, cherry, fir, walnut, oak, elm, larch, and lime, and are made of 280 pieces. The left side of the boat is longer than the right side, allowing the gondolier to pilot the gondola from the left without it changing direction, and ensuring that intoxicated gondoliers don't accidentally hit their passengers in the face with an oar while switching sides. Oh, that's actually really smart. La Rosa della Virtù. Located at the crossroads where sex and religion collide, La Rosa della Virtù, the Rose of Virtue, was run entirely by former nuns. The Pope repeatedly attempted to force the Venetian council to shut down the brothel, but it remained open until a fire in 1516 consumed it. Although the church tried to claim divine intervention, jurists found the fire to have been set by a disgruntled bishop who wanted to lie with one of the girls for free. Act of God indeed. Dorsoduro District. A favorite area for artists, Dorsoduro was Venice's festival center. It contains the Square di San Trovaso, where gondolas are constructed, and the Church of Santa Maria della Vistazione. Torre dell'Orologio. Constructed in the late 15th century as a display of Venice's wealth, the Torre dell'Orologio displays the time of day, the current phase of the moon, and for those of us who believe that all of human behavior is governed by little shapes in the stars, the dominant sign of the zodiac. According to legend, the designers of the clock face were blinded once their work was complete, so they could never duplicate it elsewhere. While this is probably bollocks, the designers did live inside the clock tower for the rest of their lives to maintain it. The Torre del Orologio ended up serving one very important practical purpose. It was used by sailors in the nearby harbor to time their departures with the tides. Basilica di San Marco. The Basilica di San Marco was first built in 828 to house supposed relics of St. Mark stolen from Alexandria. The present Byzantine-style basilica was constructed in 1063. Check out the facade. Many of the decorations were brought back from the Crusades or given as gifts from wealthy merchants. The church was considered the Doge's personal chapel. Passageway inside connects to the Palazzo Ducale next door. Palazzo Ducale di Venezia. The Palazzo Ducale was constructed from 1309 to 1424 in the Gothic style as a residence for the Doge, or rather his prison, since the Doge was rarely allowed to leave once elected. The Doge was the highest ranking elder in Venice and served in his position for life. In 1172, the selection of the Doge became entrusted to a committee of 40, the 40, whose members were chosen by the Venetian Great Council. Venice liked to think of itself as a republic, meaning that the people could participate in the government. When the Doge took office, he was introduced to the people with the words, "This is the Doge, if it please you." In fact, members of the Great Council were appointed by the 40, which in turn chose the 40. See a problem there? Candidates for the Great Council were selected from a microscopic pool containing only noble families, and although the Doge could nominate anyone to the council, the 40 and the council itself had to approve the nomination. Because the general population was largely uneducated, the election rules were purposely complicated, and the council controlled the guards. Venice followed the historical norm. The people got screwed. Campanile di San Marco. Originally built as a watchtower in the 9th century, the Campanile di San Marco was later transformed into a bell tower. Each of the 5 bells has a special purpose. One announces the Senate, another announces midday, a third the opening and closing of the workday, the fourth council meetings, and the 5th and final bell executions. Charming. Santo Stefano. This Gothic church was constructed in the 13th century, then rebuilt in the 14th. It's notable for being the resting place of a Doge, Andrea Contarini, as well as for the fact that Martin Luther once said Mass inside. What? Okay. Ponte di Rialto. The oldest and the most famous bridge in Venice, the Rialto is the dividing line between the districts of San Marco and San Polo. The bridge is notable not only for the size of its large arch, but also for its main walkway lined with shops and stalls, which was a vibrant strolling and meeting place for the community around it. Contrast that with today's Rialto, where crowds of tourists fight over cheap knockoffs of Venetian glass while some idiot attempts to spit off the edge of the bridge onto passing boats. Modernity. San Marco District. The heart of Venice, San Marco is the administrative district. Everything circles around Piazza San Marco and the Palazzo Ducale. There are lots of landmarks to see here, including the famous Church of San Marco. Santa Maria Gloriosa di Ferrari. Built by Franciscan monks, Santa Maria Gloriosa di Ferrari, the Ferrari for short, is the second largest church in Venice. Following the guidelines of St. Francis, who advocated poverty, the church has very basic exterior decoration. It is rumored that in the 15th century, the Ferrari housed a hidden tomb, which has since collapsed. Gilda di Ladri di Venezia. Established sometime around 1465, the Venetian Thieves Guild, due to its illegality, had no permanent headquarters. Although efforts were made by the magistrates to crack down on thievery, accused culprits never seemed to be around when the city guard went searching for them. And we have come full circle to Venezia. Okay, we'll do Tuscany. Or no, not Tuscany, Romagna. Yeah, and then Florence and Tuscany, and then Rome. Florence looks a lot shorter. You know what? I think we can knock this all out in one session. Romagna first, though. Forli. Founded in 798,000 BCE by Paleolithic cavemen who were interested in flint manufacturing, Forli has been an industrious center ever since. Excuse me. The name comes from the Romans, Forum Livii, who built the city in 188 BCE along the Via Aemilia, one of several roads they laid after pacifying the Gauls in the region. After Roman rule, it went from Lombard hands into church hands and then became an independent republic in 889, infuriating the Vatican, which spent the next 400 years trying to get it back. On top of Rome's constant manipulations, Forli had to deal with a steady stream of Goth, Byzantine, Lombard, and Frank marauders from the next few centuries, along with annual flooding, which was finally brought under control by diverting nearby rivers away from the city center in 1050. Like most independent republics, Forli became a military dictatorship at the end of the 13th century and then was passed on to the Ordelaffi family, who, despite having a lion with its tongue playfully sticking out as a crest, were not all that cute or nice. In 1480, with the Ordelaffi fighting amongst themselves over the chain of succession, the Pope stepped in and gave the city to his nephew, Girolamo Riario. But things didn't really go as planned for the Pope. When Girolamo was killed, the city passed to his wife, Caterina Sforza, the Amazon of Forli, who fought tooth and nail to prevent the Vatican from taking control. Ultimately, however, Caterina was vanquished and Forli passed into church hands. Oh yeah, I feel my voice fading. So we'll do Venice and Romagna today, and then next week we'll do Florence, Tuscany, and Rome, and then I think we'll be done. Avamposto Veneziano. Venetian naval strategy involved maintaining a steady chain of bases along their trade routes to the east, ensuring that its merchants were able to get there and back without being attacked by pirates, or Venice's enemies, the Turks. By the end of the 15th century, Venice's fleet was occupied trying to force Charles VIII of France out of Italy, at which point Turkish forces struck without warning. Venice was soundly defeated, losing its Greek outposts. Following that year, the Turks managed to invade Venetian territory in northern Italy. Although Venice was able to keep most of its territory from that point forward, it would never again be a great naval power. Palazzo Comunale. Built in 1000 around an existing tower, the Palazzo Comunale was enlarged in 1412 and bought by the Ordelaffi family, the heads of Forli. Their rule was marked by excessive violence, culminating in the reign of Pino III Ordelaffi, who murdered his brother for the throne, killed his first wife, his mother, and his second wife before being murdered by his third wife. Oh yes, I almost forgot to mention, he was also a great patron of the arts. Abbazia di San Mercuriale. The tower of the Abbazia di San Mercuriale, with its height of 75 meters, is one of the tallest in Italy. The first church on the site was destroyed by fire in 1173. The present structure was built with brick in the Lombard Romanesque style and took only 7 years, making it one of the most miraculous construction jobs in the history of Italy. The colonnade to the right of the church is part of the abbey's cloister. And finally, the Rocca di Ravaldino. Built with a square plan and imposing corner towers, this fortress was constructed in 1471 by the architect Giorgio Marchesi Fiorentino at the request of Pino III, the Lord of Forli, then enlarged with a citadel by Girolamo Riario, the new lord. The citadel later became the refuge for Caterina Sforza from an attack by Caesar Borgia, Rodrigo Borgia's bloodthirsty son, in 1500. It was then used as a prison. Doesn't really seem like a fun place to hang out, now does it? Alright, I think that's enough reading for today. My nose is filling up and my voice is getting tired, but one more episode and that should be it, because we'll have people done, because I think I did all of that last time. We'll have locations done. Secret locations, those might be their own thing, but I also know we already ran through the codex pages. Maybe we could run through the letters, because I don't know if I ran through every single one. And we've seen the truth already, and I'm not going to read the user manual this late in the game, so that light needs to be replaced. Even though it's not electric, it still needs to be replaced. But anyways, that is going to be all for today. We are so close, and then we'll be able to start Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. But until then, thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for next time, and stay safe out there, and we'll see you then.